What is up, side hustlers, entrepreneurs, business builders, and dream makers? Welcome to Study Your Side Hustle Podcast, episode 30. Today, I have our second guest on the show, Carlos Redlich. You know what, Carlos? I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself. What should we know about you?
Hey, I appreciate it. First off, man, thank you for coming or for letting me come onto the show. Super honored to be able to do this. I'll tell you, I'm a lifelong martial artist. Started off as a martial artist when I was 12, 13 years old, and I was 25. I started a martial arts school, and then eventually closed that down when I, like to say, discovered the internet. So when I was about 28 or so, I started working as a gun for hire copywriter, or I would get brought in to help write sales pages, webinars, ads, all this cool stuff. And so that was a kind of the launching point for my copywriting career. And since then, I continue to work with clients, whether they're coaches, e-com people, etc. But I also have some of my own offers. And yeah, that's kind of the main thing about me. The other thing is I love poker. So for all the people who like cards and like playing poker, Texas Hold'em, no limit, cash games over tournaments, that and so yeah, pleasure to be here.
Very cool. I started doing martial arts when I was 12. It was a 13th birthday present, but I started about 6 weeks before my 13th birthday. So that's one thing we got in common right there. But so my track was I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then when I was 16, I started doing Muay Thai and kickboxing. And then I also won a national tournament for Jiu-Jitsu when I was 16.
Nice.
Or a national, well, you would know, I won Naga.
Naga?
So
Nice.
to people who are,
you got the sword?
I have the sword, yeah.
Let's go.
So I won Naga as a 16-year-old blue belt. And to everybody who doesn't know the world, I tell them national because that's comparable. It's hard to explain the martial art tournament scene to people who don't know it. But yeah, so then I started training for my first MMA fight when I was 18. And because I was a competitor in jiu-jitsu, but I was never a competitor in anything striking. My coach decided that I should first do something where someone's actually trying to hit me with bad intent. So my first foray into the MMA world was doing a smoker event for kickboxing, and training for that event, I injured my sciatic nerve, and then I went and I did the smoker. And
what about for people who don't know what a smoker is? It's like an inter-gym fight, basically, or well,
yeah. So a smoker event is well, I guess yeah,
versus your gym.
An inter-gym fight is a good way to think of it. It can be they can be local, and like the one that I went to probably had 5 or 6 gyms that were there. And the real thing about it is smokers aren't technical fights. You don't have 3 rounds in kickboxing, so it's not an official fight. So the idea is getting the experience of a fight without the risk of ruining a record.
Exactly.
And so that's kind of the idea behind them. So the guy who I fought against in the smoker was clearly a Muay Thai guy. It was a kickboxing smoker, but this guy was clearly a Muay Thai guy. He probably had about as much experience in Muay Thai as I had in Jiu-Jitsu. So it was a very
started Muay Thai.
So it was very one-sided in that regard. And I was fighting on an injury. I had just injured my sciatic nerve. And so literally 2 days before the fight, I injured my sciatic nerve. And I was like, no, I'm doing it because I want to do it. And I lost. It's a smoker, so I can't lose, but I lost. I watched the recordings today, and I'm still very impressed and proud of how I did. But it was also like, no, he won on points for sure. But that was also where my MMA career ended, because I still have chronic pain from my sciatic nerve. And I've went to the doctors probably 6 or 7 times over it now. And I've never had any doctor who had any idea of anything they could do to help. So
Yikes.
I can't train anymore. Since I turned 18, I can't train consistently.
You do the stretches for the sciatic nerve, you cross your legs like this when you're on your back, and you bring it, all that stuff.
Yeah. So technically, I say sciatic nerve because it simplifies. It's not my sciatic nerve. It's the muscle right next to my sciatic nerve. It's stretched and inflamed, and the experience is that of sciatica because it's choking the sciatic nerve. But that means that taking taking pain pills if they're anti-inflammatories helps. And
Right.
that doesn't help for sciatica, but it helps for muscles. So um what I've done everything that we could possibly think of. I went through physical therapy, did all that stuff, and the idea
Chiropractor
was
too.
I haven't been to a chiropractor over it, but
Dude,
I
I used to make fun of chiropractors. Let me tell you, I used to think they were just quack doctors, and I used to make fun of them. All of this crazy stuff. Last year, I did some crazy shit. Couldn't move my neck. It like basically got stuck in one direction, and it was because I ended up getting like MRIs and all this type of shit. And they're like, dude, from like 10, 15 years of you just doing martial art, getting kicked in the head, doing heavy shit, and never getting a massage, never getting an adjust, never doing anything, it just kind of creeped up. He's like, your body is like a 50 something year old because of all the damage you've done to it in your younger years. And went to as like literally a last resort because my buddy Kyrie was like, dude, you should go see a chiropractor. I'm like, dude, I went to a real doctor. It's not going to do anything. And whatever. I was literally up all night one of these nights and I couldn't sleep and just did it as a last resort. I'm like, literally, I don't care. Just have him break my neck, do something. I don't know what's going on. Well, I went in there immediately. He did so we did like these x-rays, so he told me the same stuff the doctor did basically. So it was like, all right, at least you're kind of like telling me the same shit, like I feel comfortable. He did his treatment or his cracking, his whatever. I'm really doing a terrible job explaining. Like a chiropractor would get upset if he heard me the way I'm talking about this, but he did his thing on me. I instantly felt better. Now, it wasn't a total relief by no means. Like I still had to come, but my pain was like a 12 out of 10 when I went in, and it went down to like a 7, right? So huge help, still in a lot of pain, but I could move my neck. It was good. And then I kept going I actually go once a week now, just like because I'm a good client, I guess. I just on the rebill. But after about 6 months of doing 2 to 3 times per week, it's a game changer. I mean, I don't have any issues. I feel like a 20-year-old with my neck and my back, like nothing is hurting. We've done x-rays and you can see the notable difference. Now I can't explain it because I wasn't truly paying attention to all the technical terms, but he's like, look at your neck from before. It's because of all of this, that, and the other thing. Look at the picture of your neck now. And I'm like, I see a complete difference. It's a whole nother neck. Now, maybe it is. I don't think he's messing with me, but it literally was a game changer. And since then, I'm like 35 or 36. I keep forgetting. I think I'm 36 years old. I forget. 1987, January 19th. Someone do the maths on that. I'm pretty sure I'm 36, but whatever it is,
you're
I didn't.
36.
Yeah, so there we go. So I didn't believe in you guys until last year, and now I can't stop raving about them. So I don't know if they're going to be able to help you with your
Sure.
sciatic stuff. I have no idea. You may go in and it's like I said, I can't help you. But if you haven't tried it, just try it because it's
Sure.
like it's a very cheap alternative. Like my payments are like $150 a month or something, and I go I don't know how many times a month, like 4 or 5 times a month or something. Works great. Try it out, bro. Try it out. I hear you. I hear you on your sciatica stuff, and like my mind is like, just try the chiropractic, dude. It saved me, but it took like immediate result happened, but it took about 5 or 6 months for me to actually feel like
Right.
I'm again.
I mean,
Which
it's worth it. I haven't been able to train consistently since I was 18. And I mean, in that time frame, I was still teaching martial arts and just teaching, and trying not to do anything. Like every day of the week, it got harder for me to walk. Um, and so I I've always told people, no matter where I'm at in life, I haven't made it until I'm back in the dojo.
yeah,
So anything's worth a try.
try it, dude.
I
Try
was
it.
I was gonna say that the point of my point was to kind of make this transition of like I was forced out of the martial art world, and that's why I'm where I am now. But you kind of chose to move out of the martial art world.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'd be curious a little more of like the details around that.
So when I had been doing martial arts pretty much every day since I was 12 years old, like what we were talking about before. And then when I was 25, I was in Miami, Florida. It's where I trained at Seafood White's Jeet Kune Do school. I actually got exposed to martial art because my brother-in-law, Eddie, when I was like, well, even young, like 10 years old, younger, I used to always go to his house and my sister's house and watch Kung Fu movie. He was like an older brother to me. So he was a very cool guy. We would watch Kung Fu movies, all this cool stuff. Eventually I turned 12 years old or 11 years old, And we went to he's such a cool guy. I think about this now. I'm like, he's an adult. He's probably like my age now, hanging out with a 10-year-old, his wife's little brother, and like amazing guy. Anyways, we would go out for bagels, and he would drink his coffee, and then we ended up going to a Barnes and Noble bookstore, which was right by this Einstein Bagels in South Miami, if anyone knows where that is. And we went in there, and I was like looking at all the kung fu books, and then I started looking at Bruce Lee stuff, and I fell in love with Bruce Lee. I just like that's when I fell in love with it. And
Yeah.
he bought me the book, and we had also watched Bruce Lee movies, but I hadn't fully fallen in love with his stuff because I just thought he was like a movie
An
guy,
actor.
an actor. But then I saw like he was like legit. He had his Jeet Kune Do martial arts stuff, and he all this cool stuff. So I was like not a reader, but at 12 years old, I was reading all of these Bruce Lee books. I was just sitting in the bookstore, like absorbing all of it. And then this was when I don't remember if it was Ask Jeeves or what the search engine was, but it was like some not Google back in the day. But I went online and typed in Jeet Kune Do Miami, and this Jeet Kune Do school popped up, Seafood White Woods' school. It was the only one in the area, and I signed up there, and best thing I ever did. But anyway, so I trained from about 12 years old. 25 years old, I went with my buddy Vit, who was also an assistant instructor at that martial arts school with me. I eventually became an assistant instructor there after so long. And we started our own martial arts school, but we decided to go like 4 hours north. In the martial art world, there's a lot of people that will learn from their instructor and then open up literally like 3 blocks away. And I always thought that was very dishonorable and just kind of a scummy thing to do, especially to a person who brought you into this world. You're going to repay them by literally becoming the competition next door. Not cool. So we moved 4 hours away to not be those people. And we started our martial arts school there. It was really cool. We built it to just over 100 people in about a year. And things were like fun. I loved it. It was really good. I wasn't making any money because our rent was like 10 grand a month and our revenue was like 11 grand a month. So it was we weren't really making any money, but the growth was there, showed me a lot about business. But what ended up happening is I had turned martial art into my work, and it stopped becoming fun for me. I started having to take students on that I didn't even want to teach them because I was like, you're not dedicated enough. You don't train as, I just didn't think they were like worthy for what it was, like an ego thing, whatever. I didn't want to train them. I wanted to train people who were like really hungry to get good. And then whenever I smelled like the bitch acidness or whatever in people, I was like, I just don't want to be around you. It even to this day, that type of person, it's like, ugh, just get them away from me. But then I couldn't do that. I needed their money to keep paying my bills because had a big overhead. And so that was when I started falling out of love with martial art. And eventually I started like trying to figure out how do we grow this business. And so I started doing, marketing stuff and all the, whatever. But one of the things that ended up working for me was like a little flyer and had like some before and after pictures of people that had lost weight. And I was using copywriting principles, but I uploaded this flyer and also like a little direct mail letter as well into a Facebook group on Facebook that was copywriting and marketing related. And I had people reaching out to me asking if I could help them with their copywriting. And that was when things started to change because I was like, oh, I can make money doing this for other people. And so I started taking on clients here and there. And within 6 months, I made 6 figures, over 100 grand. And I was like, oh man, like I'm making more money doing this than I am with the martial arts stuff. Let me not do the martial arts stuff anymore. And so I closed down the school with my friend Vit. He ended up he's like a world-renowned dog trainer. He sells like $50,000 German Shepherds. He's doing amazing since closing down the school. He's gone deep into his other passion. And then I went into the copywriting world. And that it's funny because now that I've stepped away from the martial art world as a business, I've actually fallen a little bit back into love with martial art, even with the philosophy or talking to people about it. That's kind of the thing I missed. The punching and kicking stuff is cool, but I always thought, when I was in my mid-20s, I had this like, I don't know, realization. I've been doing this since I was 12. I'm like, you can only punch and kick so. And I actually heard Seafood Dwight tell me this, and it just clicked years later. He's like, there's only so much punching and kicking you can do. That's the martial part of martial art. A lot of people just forget about the art part. They just do the martial. But there's a whole nother world of philosophy and history of the arts, and there's a whole nother thing related to martial art. And so, anyways, that kind of got me back into wanting to learn more about it. And I just shifted. I shifted out of the martial art world and then the professional martial art world went fully online, and it was the best thing for me. So I know that was kind of a longer answer to your question, but
Sure.
that was kind of my journey from going from martial artist to leaving that space and doing the internet marketing stuff and copyright.
Gotcha. So I one of the most surreal moments in my, I guess, martial arts career. Um, I used to live in Washington State, and I lived like an hour south of Seattle, and
Oh,
Bruce Lee grew up in Seattle.
you're right.
Uh, and so in Seattle they have the National Bruce Lee Museum,
Right.
and one of the things they have in that museum, I went to it when I was like 20, 21, somewhere in that age. But one of the things they have in that museum is they have a ton of the books that were in Bruce Lee's library. And then they also have like the same books that are replicas that you can interact with. So you can't touch Bruce Lee's books, but you can touch the same book with, if he made any notes, identical notes placed into them.
Yeah.
So not the books he held, but effectively the same thing as far as I'm concerned. And I found in that collection of books that I was allowed to look at, a book on jujitsu. And it was one of the most surreal moments for me to be able to look through this and to read the greatest martial artist of all time fixing my martial art. Because he's just like making comments about how this book's wrong, and like,
Right.
and it's like that was really, really cool for me.
What I always thought was really interesting is I found this YouTube video and I sent it to Seafood Dwight years ago, when I first stumbled upon it and everything. So he and I had always talked about like personal. He was the first person to get me into personal development, my martial art instructor. So I was
Makes perfect
really
sense.
right. I was also a very insecure, shy kid and didn't have a lot of confidence. And so I needed a lot of this type of stuff that he was exposing me to. But what I thought was really cool is Bruce Lee, and there's actual like footage of this. And eventually Sifu ended up asking Linda Lee if this was like accurate, and she confirmed it. That, or maybe yes, Shane. It doesn't matter. He asked one of the Lees. Bruce Lee had a whole section of personal development, sales, and marketing books in his library. Like not just a handful of books, like an entire section full of it. He had Think and Grow Rich. He had I think he had like How to Win Friends and Influence People. I can't remember for sure. But there was like I remember just seeing them and looking them up, and I'm like, man, these are all like sales and marketing and personal development books. And apparently he was very big into that. And it's like a lot of people don't realize that Bruce Lee was probably one of the most master marketers out there of his time. I heard a story. I want to say Dan Inosanto, who was like kind of his right hand man, arguably in this world. I want to say he said, I forget where I heard it, or I wish I could like credit the source, but whatever. I heard that Bruce Lee closed down, I think, his schools or multiple schools or something because he would make more money exposing Jeet Kune Do through film and through other stuff. So like he was thinking like a businessman and a marketer. He didn't just want to open up a martial arts school and do this. He's like, how do we get this? How do we scale this back in the day? How do we scale this? And it was like, get on TV, get into movies. And so that's how he started doing it. And then he started working with one-on-one clients in the celebrity space, and charging them a ton of money versus charging say $50 a month or whatever for martial art class. So a lot of people just get caught up on, and I'm not like I'm not a Bruce Lee historian, but the little bit I know of Bruce Lee, it's like I think some people try and make him like a Shaolin monk, and he was not that. The guy had like he would do like marijuana edibles from the sources I've heard from. He would walk around with like a 45, even though he was like the baddest man in the fucking world. He had a gun on him. So it's like there's a lot of things that are very interesting about Bruce Lee, but one of them is I think he was just a master marketer and just ahead of his time because he was
Wait,
like 30 years old, 32.
right.
you
Well, and I
know?
know when I was at that museum, the uh I don't know, the tour guide, I guess, the guy who was talking to us, he he used to be Bruce Lee's roommate, and then he was Bruce Lee's
Whoa.
student.
What was his name?
And I don't remember his name.
Taki
Um,
or something, maybe?
I have to look it up. I don't
Oh,
remember his name.
was it a white dude or an Asian man?
It was not a white guy. He was an Asian
Not a
guy.
white Asian
Um,
guy? I gotta look this up, dude. That's so interesting. Okay.
and he so when he met Bruce Lee, he wasn't interested in martial arts at all. Bruce was, he wasn't. And they worked together, and their apartment was above the shop they worked in. And there was one day when they were just like moving boxes from a shipping truck into the shop. And the way he told the story, he's like, Bruce, the entire time I knew him, was the most arrogant man I ever knew.
Right.
And it's like, okay, that's good to know. He wasn't humble. But he's like, there was one time when he was jumping around, like over eager, couldn't sit still while we were trying to move these boxes. And he's like, looking at it today, you might think he was on steroids, the way he was like energized.
Yeah.
And he kept provoking me, and he said, just try to hit me in the face. Just try to hit me in the face. It's like, so at one
What?
point, I
Ogre stuff.
dropped the box, turned around, and punched him in the face. And he took it and brushed it off and said, "You won't do it again, though." So I tried to punch him again, and he put me on my back. He's like, and that's the one time. He's like, after that, I became a student, but that was the one time I ever landed a punch on Bruce Lee.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That makes total sense, man. I heard similar stories. Obviously, I wasn't there, but I've heard
Right.
similar stories, and it's very interesting. Um, it is what it is. People like to make Bruce Lee sound, like I said, like a Shaolin monk, and I think he was maybe the opposite of that to a degree. Like he used
Right.
to go and pretend to be gay and try to start fights on the street so he could test out his martial arts stuff. Like, I don't know if that's like a monk type of thing to do.
No, a good monk would try not to fight, and
Exactly.
like,
Exactly. Exactly.
yo, okay. Well, so this is funny. I mean, we've already talked for like over 20 minutes. Um, so I'm gonna wrap it up. I didn't ask you nearly as many questions about like copywriting as I expected to, because I didn't ask
Oh,
you any question
yeah.
about copywriting.
Oh, yeah.
But I am gonna
Have a
ask you,
headline.
but I am gonna ask you one question about business, and it's the question that I want to end all of my interviews with, and it needs a little bit of explanation. It
Sure.
comes from the Pareto distribution, which is usually in the marketing world just explained as the 80-20 rule. 80% of results come from 20% of efforts, which is an oversimplification, because the Pareto distribution is actually much more aggressive. It's actually a function that you learn about if you study statistics like I did. And uh, this is also an oversimplification, but it's easier to explain this way. To get it right, think about applying the rule to itself. So 80% of results come from 20% of efforts. 80% of those results come from 20% of those efforts. So that comes into a 64-4 rule. But you can keep doing this. On the next step, you would get that 51.2% of results come from 0.8% of efforts. Translation, more than half of the results come from less than 1% of actions. So, and for most people, that's probably pretty close to saying more than half of your success is directly related to one thing that you do right. So my question for you, Carlos, what is that one thing for you?
So this will I'm gonna give you the basic answer, then I'm gonna give you like some examples and shit, right? Because it's
Cool.
gonna be super oversimplified. But essentially, it's just making friends. I know that sounds a little weird, but there's a lot of ways to make friends, right? And let's go over a few. So the most simple way I have, and I wish I was wearing it now, almost always I'll have a shirt that says copywriter on it. You know that, right? I almost
I do.
always have this shirt. And especially if I go out into public, into like the real world, not on the interwebs, into the real world, I'm always wearing that. And it's because whenever someone sees the word copy, because that's what I do, right? So this is my way of doing it. Whenever someone sees copywriter and they ask, "Are you a copywriter?" Because that type of stuff happens, they're almost always a marketer or a possible client of some kind. I haven't yet had a copywriter come up to me and say, "Hey, I'm a copywriter too." Haven't seen it. Maybe it'll happen. It would be cool. Not against it. But whenever it has happened, or whenever someone has reached out to me, it's always because they were some kind of business owner, wanted help with their marketing, and so that turns into opportunities, right? So that's a very simple way of doing it. This also happened to me. Let me actually see here. Give me one second. I want to give you an example of this. So this also happened to me. Can I share my screen for 2 seconds just as proof?
Sure. I don't know how that's gonna work for people who are only listening,
Oh, sorry, guys. Well, I'll tell
but
you
yeah,
what
you
I'm going
can.
to share. I'm just going to share a text message from a guy I just met 2 days ago or something like that. David Goldman, met at pool, poker here on the 22nd at 6 p.m. To put in perspective, I don't know how wealthy this guy. I just met him. Very nice guy. I'm not here trying to talk about his money, but what he did say is like, "Hey, he liked my shirt. We started a conversation at a pool in my friend Anthony Powell's building." Now, to put in perspective, the people that go to this is Anthony Powell right here. The people that go to his or who live in his building, I should say, are at minimum a millionaire, but there's a few billionaires that live in this building as well. So it's a very good place, right? So I'm out here. He's a client of mine and a friend of mine because we became friends, and again goes back to making friends. And we had a barbecue there, went in the pool. I had my copywriter shirt. I ended up going in the pool. This guy who I just showed you the screenshot of or the text message of or whatever, he's in there with his wife or girlfriend. And we just started talking because it's just us. It's not like a party pool. It's very, very, not a lot of people there. So we go in there, we start talking, and one thing leads to another. We just have a good rapport. He's telling me how he's worked with like Grant Cardone and done this, and has all of these different types of companies. He's got a place in Nevada where he's got all this cool stuff. Anyway, we started talking about poker and stuff too, and he's like, "Oh, so you're a copywriter and a poker player?" He's like, "I got to get you to my poker game. I've got a poker game and it's really cheap. It's like $50, $100, man, to buy in. It's a bunch of friends. We go, but I think it'd be cool because everyone there makes at least $500,000 a month. And I think it'd be cool to plug you in as a copywriter because they could probably be your clients." I just met this guy, just met him. Guy's probably a decamillionaire. I don't know. Just guessing.
Right.
I don't know. But he's a very wealthy guy. And he and I are connecting, making friends, gonna go and play poker, not selling him shit yet, but he knows what I do. He knows I'm a copywriter. He's a successful guy too. He knows at the end of the day, we all want to grow too. It's not like, but one of the ways we do it is through poker games. So he invited me into his inner circle, into his network to play a poker game at his penthouse. This is crazy. The type of people I'm going to be meeting there, if he's not lying, which I don't think he is, they're making at least like $5 million a year. Probably a good amount of them are making more. And then little old me is going to come in there with my $100 and try to sell them some copy down the line, right? But that's a physical way. That's in the real world way of making friends while still being kind of.
He's probably thinking through the same exact thought process though. He's doing that because he knows making friends is what makes him successful.
He actually told me that. So this is also kind of one of my answers because I was talking to him, and one of the things that me and Anthony we were all talking. He's like, I'm not the nerd. I'm not the tech guy. I don't know all of that stuff. My job is making friends. It's sales. It's being personable. And the more people I have in my network that are cool and friends, like you never know. I can refer you business. You can refer me business. I might be a client. You might be a client. I don't know. But we can be friends because we're obviously gelling right now.
Right.
And I'm like, man, it's important because I didn't learn how to make friends until I think I got into my like 20s. And when I was growing up, I was like a dork. I didn't have a lot of friends. I had like one friend my whole life. You know what I mean? So I didn't learn. I was very shy. I didn't learn that. But now that I've got a daughter, I'm like I push her to make friends with little boys and little girls at the park. And I'm like, they're very friendly. I promise. Go make friends with them. They're going to be nice. Like, I don't want her to have a hard time making friends because it's one of the most it's one of the biggest reasons for my little bit of success and for like this other guy's success as well. From what he says, like making friends, because like even Anthony Powell, I became friends with him years ago, and he ended up turning into, at the time, we're not doing this now, we're partners now, but he was paying me 10 grand a month to like write his copy. And it's because we became friends, and he literally plucked me out of poverty because I was on food stamps. I was broke. I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent. And we ended up meeting in Miami Beach at a hotel and hanging out and talking. And he told me all about what he wanted to do. And he's like, how much would you charge me for this? I'm like 10 grand a month. And he's like, done. And shook my hand. And that was the deal. I was like, I should ask for 20, but that's how that happened. So in the online world as well, I've done the same thing. I've connected with people. I do it every day on LinkedIn. And our buddy AJ, he helps me connect with people on LinkedIn that are people who are going to either be a chief marketing officer, an owner of a business, a CEO, etc. But I'm building my network online by just connecting with these people. That could be on social media like Facebook, LinkedIn, doesn't matter. And the reason I'm not trying to be super tactical and say, hey, add this amount of people on Facebook and do this and do that is because I want this information to be something that can last for a lifetime or as long as this thing goes. And the principle of making friends doesn't change. It could be in person, it could be on social, doesn't matter, because once you build enough friends that are all relatively successful and we're all kind of feeding off of each other, that's how you can grow a business organically. And once you do that and you can start getting some traction, then you can start investing into like paid advertising and other marketing stuff where maybe you can get more aggressive with your spending and stuff. But if I was just starting out, and even now, it's not even just starting out, like even now, my main way of getting business is making friends, right? And that's like even what we're doing right now. If we took it like this, I am making friends with you. I'm making friends with your audience slowly, because they maybe this the first time they've heard of me. But over time, if they keep watching my stuff, maybe we meet up down here in Arizona sometime. It doesn't matter. But making friends would be my long and short answer of how to make this thing work.
Awesome. Thanks, man. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. What is a good way for anybody who has been listening to this and decides, you know what, I would love to be friends with Carlos Redlich? What's a good way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can add me on Facebook. Just type in Carlos Redlich, Redlich. And if you're interested in having me write your copy or see what it looks like to have me build a sales funnel and write your copy and all that for you, just go to the website yourcasestudy.com. Again, it's yourcasestudy.com. Put in your info there. You're going to see a little 5-minute video of me explaining exactly what I do, how I can help you. And if it seems like a good fit, you just go ahead, book a free consultation call with me, and then we'll see how we can work together. So again, that website is yourcasestudy.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time, Carlos.
Thank you, man.
And to everybody listening, I will be back in your earbuds again on Monday.